More foreign nationals are preparing to leave Gaza through the Rafah crossing today. At least 320 foreign passport holders were evacuated on Wednesday alongside dozens of severely injured Palestinians. Around 7,500 foreigners are expected to leave over the next 2 weeks under a deal brokered by Qatar.
These were some of the first foreign passport holders to reach the safety of Egyptian soil. On the other side, hundreds were hoping for their chance to cross, but only those on a list agreed by Israel and Egypt would be allowed to do so. After more than 3 weeks under Israeli bombardment and blockade, people here were desperate to escape.
We are relying on God and hoping we'll get out. It's still our country and we feel sad for it, for its destruction, for our friends and loved ones. Entire families were destroyed and erased, all martyred. And if it weren't for what happened, we wouldn't leave.
As well as those allowed to leave for good, Egyptian authorities have agreed to a small number of medical evacuations, with ambulances crossing the border to retrieve the severely injured. Once in Egypt, they were taken to nearby hospitals for treatment. Gaza's own medical facilities are desperately short of even basic supplies and are overflowing with the injured. And while more aid trucks were allowed through once again on Wednesday, aid groups say it's only a tiny fraction of what entered daily before the Hamas terrorist attacks. The head of the UN's relief agency in Gaza stressed that residents were in urgent need after he crossed into Rafah for a visit.
And I was shocked by the fact that everyone there was asking for food, was asking for water. I saw almost every children trying to express their way that they need to eat, they need to have water. I never ever have seen something similar in Gaza when I came before, after conflict.
Egyptian officials say more people will be able to leave over the coming days, but it's unclear just how long the border will remain open to foreign passport holders. What is certain is that unless Egypt's government lets Palestinians cross too, for the vast majority of those trapped in Gaza, escape will remain impossible.
Well, for more on the situation on the ground, let's now speak to journalist Hazem Balousha. He's reporting from Gaza there. Hazem, more people are preparing to leave Gaza today. Tell us more.
Yes, 400 internationals or Palestinian holding foreign passports, along with 60 Palestinians will leave through Rafah to Egypt and maybe to other destinations later on. Yesterday there was another 400 or a bit less, along with the 54 Palestinian wounded with their escorts left to Egyptian hospitals.
Now, has any aid reached Gaza today?
Today, no, not yet, but expected some trucks to come in. Over 250 or a bit more arrived in the previous days, and more expected to be received today, including food, water, and medical supply.
Is this aid, you spoke about the 250 so far, 250 trucks, is this aid beginning to make a difference for civilians?
Well, in some places, some areas, UNRWA schools like that displaced people are taking as a shelter. They're receiving more aid. Some organizations are distributed, but making huge or a concrete difference, it's not. I mean, still, we are talking about a huge number of displaced people, whether from the north or Gaza City, or even those people who are in this area from the border areas or other places, poor people. They are still struggling of getting the aid. The distribution mechanism is not clear to everybody. When I'm asking coordinator people about that, they don't know. Sometimes they get some aid from here and there, but it's not easy because there is no cooking gas, so people are not cooking in their homes. No water for washing or even for a drink.
Hazem Balousha there reporting from Gaza. Thank you very much, Hazem.
Thank you.
And joining me now is Hadeel Qazzaz. She is the Regional Gender Justice Coordinator for Oxfam International, based in Ramallah. Welcome. Could you please tell us about your organization's work in Gaza right now and where you are seeing the biggest gaps in humanitarian assistance?
Unfortunately, our organization cannot move on the ground. We have 33 staff members and their families are under fire. There is very, very difficult situation for our partners. We have a large network of partners who cannot do anything basically because of the continuous bombardment across Gaza Strip in the south as well as in the north. Therefore, we depend only on the numbers that come from UN, and these are alarming. They are basically in the minute humanitarian situation is deteriorating very quickly. We have estimates that food in Gaza will not last more than 7 days. The number of trucks that entered, 227, is half of what would have been entering Gaza on a daily basis. Now we are on the 27th day of the war, and this is only half a day worth of supplies. Not all of them is food. We hear from families and friends, including mine, that the queues to water, drinking water, and is getting longer. If you want to get like a bag of bread, you have to queue at least 5-6 hours. And if you find it, if you are lucky enough, my sister was telling me that she queued for 6 hours yesterday, and then she had to go back without bread because the bakery ran out of it. Basically, we are seeing a humanitarian situation that we have never witnessed in all of our interventions globally, where people are starved, people are lacking access to water, medication, basic necessities, and these are one of the mostly highest dense places across the world, basically. Yes. So yeah, it's very alarming, very concerning, honestly.
Now, your work at Oxfam normally focuses on gender justice. When you look at the situation unfolding in Gaza, are there special considerations that need to be made for women's safety and well-being?
Yeah, a huge consideration on all aspects. The basic needs of women, feminine hygiene, and the need for dignity kits is alarming. We are hearing stories about women giving birth in very infected and not very clean conditions. If there's any complication for a birth, and there are 5,500 women who are expected to give birth this month only in the Gaza Strip. We hear about young girls taking hormonal medications to prevent their period from coming because there are not enough toilets or bathrooms around the evacuation centers. We are hearing devastating stories about, yesterday I was in a call where someone from Gaza was describing how 11 women arrived to the shelter. They walked from the Gaza Strip, from Jabalia, where the bombardment happened, to Deir al-Balah, and they arrived in very, very bad condition. They told him, we were 20. By the time we crossed our own street, we became 11. They came without anything, without any food, any clothes, already they were in their homes in bad conditions. But can you imagine also the psychological stress of running almost 20 kilometers to go to a safe space, and then there's no food to be offered for them in this shelter. There's no place. This guy said, we don't have any place to host them even because it's overcrowded. They have at least 20 to 30 people in a small room, 2 by 3 square meters. So it's alarming.
Terrible conditions that you're describing there.
It's terrible conditions, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on DW. With that update. That is Hadeel Qazzaz with Oxfam International. We really appreciate your time.
Mike Noyes is with ActionAid UK. That's an international charity that works with women and girls living in poverty. We asked him how medical staff are coping with the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. And for more on this, let's speak to Mike Noyes. He's the head of Humanitarian Response at ActionAid UK, who joins us now from London. Mike, according to the organisation Doctors Without Borders, there are around 20,000 injured people in Gaza at the moment. How is medical staff there coping?
Yeah, thank you for having us on today. It's a very, very difficult situation in Gaza at the moment for everyone, including for medical staff, as I'm sure you know. We've been working with a number of hospitals for a long time in Gaza, well before this conflict started, before this upsurge in violence started. And what we're hearing from them at the moment is just the sheer impossibility of working, overwhelmed by the numbers of injured, but also continued to try and deliver on their casework. We work particularly with a maternity hospital that is still trying to deliver cesarean, still trying to look after babies in incubators in this situation. They've had enormous problems with supplies of materials, but especially with the need to keep the generators going so that they've got electricity to power incubators and ventilators, and to keep the lights on so that they can do their surgery. It's an almost impossible situation for them. We know some hospitals have already ceased functioning, others are on the verge of it.
Now, the Rafah border crossing is now open for injured people, as we've heard earlier in our programme. How are they being prioritised?
I think that's in the hands of organisations like the Red Crescent Society and the UN. It's not something that our hospitals are involved with, so I'm sorry, I can't really help you on that. But I think the key thing to say is these are still very small numbers of people getting out of Gaza compared to the numbers of injured, to the numbers needing medical treatment, and to the impact that this war has had so far on the hospitals who are, in danger of no longer functioning. There really is no longer an effective medical service in Gaza for the 2.5 million people who are under constant bombardment.
Now, there is still, though, the Palestinian Ministry of Health, which is run by Hamas. Are they in any way involved in aid distribution? Are you talking to them, working with them?
Our hospitals are independent hospitals that are not part of the Ministry of Health structures in Gaza. We're working with hospitals that we've always worked with, that continue to try and deliver services to the population. That's the most important thing at this time. It's about working with and for the ordinary people of Gaza. They're the people who are at the receiving end of all this. They're the ones that are suffering most.
Now, we've heard reports also that the water in Gaza is contaminated. So where are people getting water from?
They're getting it from wherever they can, and it's a real struggle. More than anything else, this is the message we're hearing from our colleagues and collaborators in Gaza. There are so many challenges that people are facing right now, but the biggest of all is water. There's almost no clean water. Many people are drinking dirty water. We've had multiple reports of people resorting to drinking seawater or salt water from wells close to the sea, as it's the only option available to them. And as anyone will know, that is not something people can sustain in the long term. We know people are trying to do local desalination, which effectively means boiling up seawater and catching the condensation, but you can't do that without fuel.
Mike Noyes, the head of Humanitarian Response at ActionAid UK. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
DW correspondent Rebecca Ritters joins us now from Sderot in southern Israel. Rebecca, can you give us an update on Israel's offensive?
Yeah, well, it's very difficult. We're standing here in Sderot. You can see the Gaza border behind us. It's about 2 kilometres away. We can hear all the bombing, but we know from the Israeli military that they have said that they've actually broken through Hamas's first line of defence and that they are pushing through toward Gaza City. We believe the plan is that they're trying to encircle the city. We know, of course, that they've been carrying out very heavy air bombardments, and they're also attacking, as I said, on the ground. We've got ground combat and also naval forces bombing from the sea. So very much pushing on with their plan. there's been an update of the amount of IDF soldiers that have been killed since the ground invasion began almost a week ago now, and that number has risen to 17. We believe 16 actually inside Gaza and one that has died subsequently from his wounds from fighting outside in the early days after the attack. So we're seeing the death toll on the Israeli side, the soldiers rising. We've had words from the military chiefs and also from Benjamin Netanyahu telling Israelis to expect a long road ahead, that this is going to be a very tough battle, and that's certainly what we're seeing play out.
Now, Gaza being, of course, at the center of attention right now, the military activities, but we're also hearing of clashes in the West Bank. What do you know about that?
Yeah, violence has been pretty much, I mean, we know that clashes have been happening, of course, are sporadic and ongoing always. And in the last 18 months or so, there's been an uptick of Israeli raids, military raids on many areas in the West Bank as they try and quash what they say is militant activity. But we've seen that really pick up since October 7. Since October 7, there's been more than 120 deaths of Palestinians, killings either in IDF raids or by settler violence, which has also peaked quite a lot, spiked quite a lot, I should say, since October 7. We've even had ministers calling for gun licenses to be eased and more guns to be handed out, promising that they wouldn't, in fact, supply people with weapons so that they could, you know, quote unquote, protect themselves or carry out attacks on Palestinians. This morning, though, we also saw an Israeli settler was killed by Palestinian, or thought to be Palestinian, gunfire in the West Bank, and the IDF are conducting a manhunt for the shooter. So definitely a very tense situation there, and Palestinians being displaced from their homes as well, and roads cut off, lots of checkpoints, extra checkpoints set up, making movement for Palestinians in between cities not only lengthy and time-consuming, difficult, but also many tell me that they're fearful. They're just scared to travel around for the uptick in settler violence.
DW correspondent Rebecca Ritters there reporting. Thank you very much, Rebecca.